Hello, welcome to the fifth episode of the series Learning Web Development in 2022. In the last episode, titled Introduction to HTML Part 2, we covered input elements in HTML like checkbox, text field, radio buttons, number field, date field, and so many others. Feel free to check the last episode if you have not watched it yet. On this episode, titled Introduction to CSS, we will cover some basic CSS properties and also how to add CSS to a HTML document. Here is a list of what we are going to cover. In today's episode, we are going to cover the following: font size, font weight, color, text alignment, text decoration, and text transform. So without further ado, let's get started. So, what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. CSS is a library that is used to style web pages, and in here we already have a web page setup that has some basics HTML elements like h1s, paragraph, and some UL list elements. And when we try to preview this web page, here's what we have: just a basic ordinary HTML page. And using CSS, we are going to transform this web page into something very beautiful. So let's get started. So to style an HTML element, we can use the style property or attribute. As we said earlier in the previous videos, attributes are properties that gives more information to an element. For example, the class attribute, the ID attribute, and the rest. So we have an attribute called style, and we can use this attribute to style any HTML element. Now once we call this attribute, we have to give it a value of a string or values of string. Now this value has two sides. It has a property and a value. Now for example, to talk about colors, you can see color and then red. Now the color is the name of the property and red is the value of the property. As you can see, the color and the red are separated by a colon. This is very important. And also after every property, we need to add a semicolon to the end so that we can add a new property at the ending. Now we can save this and try to preview our web page, and then we will have a red h1 element. Now this is possible because of the color property. Now we can be able to use many colors as possible. We can use red, blue, and so many other colors. We can also optionally use RGBA colors. For example, we can use RGBs 0. The first value is for red, so we don't need red. Let's create a blue with RGB 0, and then we give it a 255 of at the ending. Now we have a blue color. Also we can create a red color using RGB by adding 255 at the beginning, just like this. So let's stick with our red color, or we can go with green. Now let's save this, and this is what we have: a green text that says welcome to the Nigerian company. So now the next thing we will talk about is font size. So what is font size? I know the word sounds descriptive to you. Font size is a property that is simply used to increase the size of a text. For example, if you want to make a text bigger, we'll have to call the font size and give it a big value, for example like 50px. And then let's go back to our screen, and here's what we have: the text is bigger than before. Now the px stands for pixels, and it is the measuring unit that is used in styling, in increasing the size of elements in HTML. We have other measuring units like rem and inches as well. Okay, so now the next thing we'll cover is font style. What are font style? Font styles are a way to style an element, either to make it slant, italic, or oblique. For example, if you want to make our h1 italic, you call the font style property and give it the italic value. And then let's save this, go back to our code. Now as you can see, our welcome to the Nigerian company is slightly italic. And also we can choose normal, which is the default value. Now you can see it's back to normal, or we can choose oblique. this is oblique. Okay, now let's take it back to normal. The next thing we are going to cover is font weight. Now, font weight simply means the boldness of a text. If you want to make text bolder, we have to use font weight to increase the boldness of that text. So now let's go back to our li elements and give them a font weight. Fixed style font weight. We can choose a value between 100 and 900. So let's give it 100. This is our text. It is light. Let's give it 500. This is our text. It's still light, but not lighter than before. Let's give it a value of 900. As you can see, it will be bold. As you can see, it is very bold. Now, 900 is the highest value, while 100 is the lowest value. So you can copy this property and add it to all the li elements. Now we'll have a bold list. And the next thing we are going to cover is text alignment. For example, let's say we want this welcome to the Nigerian company to be at the middle of the screen. How can we do that? We can use a text alignment property to align a text to the center or to the right or to the left of the screen. So let's go back to our h1 element, put a semicolon here and say text align. Now the text align has values like center, justify, left and right. Now left will take the element to the left, which is by default its position, and right will take the element to the right. Center will take the element to the center, and justify will give an equal space to make sure that the element fill the entire width of the screen. So we're going to use center, and now this is center. As you can see, our text is centered to the screen. So next, how can we make this paragraph a little bit bigger? So let's go to this paragraph, add a style property and say font size. Let's give it a value of 20 px. Now our paragraph is slightly bigger, and if we want to take our paragraph to the middle of the screen, all we have to do is add a text align property. Text align property of center. Save it. Now our text is at the center of the screen. Now to increase the size of this h3 element, we can go to it and give it a style, and then give it a font size of around 30 px to make it slightly big, which is this. And then we can optionally give it a color. You can say color and say green. Now it will be green as well. So now the next thing we are going to cover is text decoration. So text decoration is basically a property used to decorate a text. With text decoration, you can be able to add an underline to a text, or an overline, or a line through. For example, if you want to underline this welcome to the Nigerian company, we can go to the style and say text decoration. We can choose underline. Now once we go back, as you can see, our text is underlined. There are other values like overline, which will add a line over a text, and we have another value like line through, which will add a line through a text, but we're going to stick with underline, which is this. Now as you can see, our web page looks more beautiful than it was before, and all because of CSS. Now the next one we're going to cover is text transform. For example, as you can see, not every word in this text is capitalized. For example, we might want to capitalize Nigeria, or just the first letter of any word in this text. And how can we do that? We can use the text transform property. Text transform property. Now the text transform property has values like capitalize, lowercase and uppercase. Now let's work with lowercase. Now the lowercase value will turn all the alphabet to lower cases, and the uppercase value, just like the name suggests, will turn all the alphabets to capital cases. Now the capitalize will capitalize each first letter of every word. like this, and we want our text to be capitalized, so we leave it like this. So that's the end of this series, of this episode. And on the next episode, we are going to talk about more on CSS. Like, we'll talk about internal CSS and external CSS. For example, as you can see, we made several repetitions here. For example, this text is repeated more than once, and with the help of internal styling and external styling and also CSS selectors, we can be able to choose a specific element or maybe an element and then style them all at once. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next